Hello, XL. We have a special guest. So this afternoon, we have an immigration consultant, and his name is Patrick. Welcome to the XL Show, Patrick.
Welcome to the XL Show, Patrick.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Chris. Nice to
How
be
are
here.
you today?
Thanks for having me.
Days, this is the first time we're going to have a guest from New Brunswick.
Yeah, so exciting.
And also the first time that we'll be having a guest who is an immigration consultant. So, Patrick, we have a lot of our friends and relatives are asking us some things about immigrations, and of course we cannot answer it. That's why it's good. Thank you so much for responding to our invitation to the XL Show.
Yeah, you're very welcome. So I'll do my best to answer your questions. Of course, being a licensed professional, there are some lines that I cannot cross, but I'm okay with giving, public domain, public knowledge, top level information, which definitely will be valuable to your viewers.
So we gathered some questions from viewers. Chris would be asking them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So prior to this recording, we already asked some of our subscribers and friends of their questions about immigrations, and I'm going to read some of their questions and for Mr. Patrick to answer. And
Okay,
first question is coming from my friend Ruel Urgel Villaluna. Can a tourist get married with her longtime boyfriend here in Canada? The boyfriend is already a Canadian citizen.
Okay. Yeah, that's a common question that I get asked. So, being a tourist doesn't prevent you from getting married in any way. So if you are here in Canada as a tourist and you have a long-time boyfriend and legitimate relationship, then and you want to get married, there's no problem with this. And then depending on your circumstances, you may then be eligible to be sponsored as a spouse. Of course, as is the case with most types of immigration applications, your circumstances may differ. So I would recommend, if you're considering doing this, to consult a professional and ask questions specific to your case in regards to the spousal sponsorship part of it. But yes, you can get married if you're here as a visitor with your longtime boyfriend.
That's nice. That's good news for the boyfriend-girlfriend relationship.
Yes.
Most especially the long-term boyfriend-girlfriend relationships. They have been separate for each other for a long time already.
Right.
That's a good one.
The difficult thing may be for the applicant to come here as a tourist, but that's a whole other story.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
So
it's possible if they get married inside Canada or outside. That's okay. No.
Yes, in both cases, it eventually might lead to a possible spousal sponsorship.
Sponsorship.
Yeah, depends on their circumstances, but this is the basis of it. Yes, get married first. Whether you do that in Canada or outside Canada is fine. It just might make it so you would use different ways or a different stream for it.
Yeah, that's the option. Okay. It's either the woman from the Philippines can go here and get married, or the boyfriend can go to the Philippines and get married.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. That's good. Okay. Now, number 2 is from Rochelle Fabian. How can I sponsor my husband here in Canada? I have been a PR already for more than 5 years. What are the requirements needed?
So, this is a little bit of a similar answer to the previous question. Yeah. So, being a PR for 5 years, you can sponsor your spouse. I mean, in theory, in most cases, the day you become a PR, you can sponsor your spouse. It's not all cases, but in most cases, that's the only requirement, is to be a PR when you sponsor your spouse. Whether they live in Canada or overseas, like whether they live with you in Canada or they're overseas back in the Philippines, for example, will again open different options for you. I would recommend that you book a consultation with a professional to look at your specific case and get actual information for your specific scenario. But yes, this is something that you definitely can do.
Nice. Are there any proofs needed? This is what I've heard from outside. They have to prove that they've been together for 1 or 2 years, or They have to prove
Well,
their.
so there's a portion of the application where you have to prove that the relationship is genuine. Now, this is where it becomes really very much of a case by case situation. If you're living together and you have been for several years, then it's very easy to prove, the relationship. If you're living apart, then that's where you have to become more creative. Prove, communication, proof, pictures together, testimonies from family and friends in the form of affidavits, this kind of document. Now, everybody's circumstances are different.
Yeah.
Everybody's, and a professional looking at a specific case may give, different document requirements for one individual and another one, depending on how they communicate and what their specific circumstances are.
That's nice. Okay,
How
Rochelle.
different or how similar is this, Patrick, when it comes to common law relationship? A marriage
Common law
relationship
is
between a common law. How different or
Yeah,
how
so
different?
common law is significantly more complicated because whereas in the case of a marriage, your relationship is technically proved by documentary evidence, the common law relationship, you have to establish that it is genuine. So you're going to have to almost plan ahead of time in most cases
Okay.
to prove common law. So I would say it's a case by case scenario. It's most definitely possible. It's just significantly more difficult, and you'll have to produce quite a bit more documentation to support it.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah, okay.
So
Now,
next
third
question.
question will be about international student. This is from Chester Velarde. How much is the show money for international student? Is there an age limit for students?
So as far as study permit applications go, there is no age limit for students. Now, specific universities or colleges or designated learning institutions might have some rules regarding that, and it may vary from one to the other. But as far as the study permit application, there's no age limit. As far as show money, depending on the stream you apply for, the rule of thumb is generally you have to prove that you can pay 1 year's worth of tuition, either by having paid it or by showing you have the funds, depending on whether or not it's a regular study permit application or a student direct stream, and then $10,000 either through a guaranteed investment certificate or proof of funds, depending again if you're doing a regular study permit application or study direct, is usually a good amount or the minimum requirement really. So 1 year of tuition plus $10,000, you're pretty much good.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
How about the board and lodging? Did they have to have their apartment here, house?
No, so this is where
Okay,
this is where the $10,000 come in, right? So that
okay,
$10,000 is there to make sure that the individual can afford to pay for rent, to pay for food, to pay for utilities while they're studying in Canada.
that's nice. Okay,
Okay.
clear now. Okay, clear. That's clear for me. Number 4 is from Cherry Rojas. What are the options for me to sponsor my adult and married siblings or cousins to Canada?
This is another question I get asked fairly often, and sadly, the answer is pretty simple. There are no ways.
Oh,
You cannot sponsor your adults,
Oh.
married siblings, or cousins to Canada under any of the available pathways.
Okay.
okay.
They would
What,
have
what's
to qualify on their own merit for example, economic immigration, or get a work permit on their own merit, or apply for a study permit on their own merit, but you cannot sponsor them.
okay? Just a follow-up question on that. So you can only sponsor like your husband, your spouse, and parents as well?
So you can generally easily sponsor your spouse, whether it's
Okay.
marriage or through common law relationship. In some very rare cases, you can use what's called a conjugal relationship, but let's not get into that. Then you can sponsor your children up to
Oh,
a certain limit. Generally speaking, and again, case by case may vary, but generally speaking, once they reach 22 years old, they can no longer be sponsored. Or if they get married before that, or in a common law relationship, then they can no longer be sponsored. You can sponsor your parents, but this is a complex. it's difficult to be allowed to do so. Every year, the way to sponsor your parents changes,
Mhm.
and is grounds for a lot of controversy. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
Now, there are some very rare situations where you can sponsor a sibling, and I don't want to get into too
Mhm.
specific of details, but this is situations like, for example, your sibling has no living family, is a minor, and is an orphan. So it is very specific niche cases where the law kind of extends an olive branch to help people in need sponsor uh, let's say, individuals in need of family proximity. Let's put it that way.
Oh, nice. That's nice to hear that. Okay. Number
Mhm.
five is can a tourist apply? I think the question is already an existing tourist here. Can he apply for work while in Canada? If yes, what are the requirements? That question is
Right.
from Gio Inovero.
Okay, so this is a bit of a complicated question because while you're in Canada as a visitor, I think prevents you from applying for jobs. But
Uh-huh.
employers cannot hire people that don't have proper work permits. The only way they can do this is if they go through the proper channels. In most cases, this is the LMIA process. In some cases, through some of the PNP programs. In some cases, through the Atlantic Immigration Program, for example. There's also some of the international mobility program, like Francophone Mobility, which allow French-speaking foreign nationals to more easily get a job. But your question seems to be, can they apply from inside Canada? Under normal circumstances, cannot apply for a work permit from inside Canada. Now, because of COVID, there's been what's called temporary public policy that has been
Mm-hmm.
active for some time. Temporary public policies are like temporary laws. They override legislation. And right now, in most cases, you can apply for a work permit from inside Canada. Now, this doesn't give you any special treatment. It doesn't make the processing for the work permit faster. It actually makes it slower in most cases. And you cannot work while the work permit is processed. So it's not really a faster way to get a work permit, even though some people seem to think that it is. So,
Okay.
Okay. And then about what's number six is about IELTS. Do you
right.
need IELTS for international students here, and what's the passing grade?
Okay, so that's an interesting question. So on the one hand, if you're applying for a regular study permit, there's no requirements for an IELTS. Now, admission requirements for most educational institutions do require that you have a specific language threshold. So usually doing an IELTS is pretty much required. If you want to apply to the student direct stream, which is a faster stream, then you do need to provide an IELTS. And I think it has to be CLB 7, so band score 6, or a French test, TEF, for example, where, with a 7 equivalent. So, well, yeah, various universities and colleges have various admission requirements, and you would have to contact that institution directly to know what their requirements are.
Okay.
Okay. Regarding the IELTS, I hear from some people there are two types. One is an
Mm-hmm.
academic IELTS, one is a
Yeah,
general academic. Is it?
correct.
So
Yeah,
there
so
are two types. Okay.
there are, yes. So
Oh.
in all cases, if you're applying for a university, you have to take the academic IELTS because, of course, you're going for an academic institution. The generic IELTS is used for anything but student permit applications.
Oh,
Usually
okay.
anything but.
Oh.
There may be some exceptions, but if you're applying for PR, for example, and they require a specific language threshold, if you present an academic IELTS, it will be declined. So
Are
that's where a professional can help somebody and orient them in the right direction, get the right paperwork.
okay. Okay. Good to know. Good to know. So it's true.
Yeah. And if, for example, people or some kids are already interested in applying for international students, what will be their first step? I know a lot of people are say, I want to migrate to Canada, I want to study in Canada, but what would be my first step? What would I do?
Well, the first step will be to make the most important decision in your life, and that is to decide to go study to a different country. That's not
Yeah,
something
yeah.
to take on lightly. It's a life
Big
changing
decision.
decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then the second step, and you know, people often get this step at the wrong place in the process, but the second step would be to accumulate the necessary funds. You don't make the decision and then get the letter of acceptance and then scramble to get the money. You should really have the money before you start the
Yeah,
process, just to be sure
that's
you can
true.
afford it. Then obtaining a letter of acceptance from a designated learning institution is going to be your next step. And once you have that, then you're going to work on preparing and submitting your study permit application. Now, at the last step, I can't recommend enough that you get the services of a professional, especially in cases of study permits. They are, more difficult than they sound. A simple case, maybe a simple application, but most people are not simple cases. So.
So they have to choose first their school, and of course their province. There's a lot of places here in Canada. They
Oh,
have to choose
absolutely.
first wherever they want to.
Absolutely. And where you decide to study may affect the ways that you can become a permanent resident following your studies. So it's all a big decision, and every little thing matters in making that decision. Also, if you come to study, for example, in the Atlantic provinces, the cost of living will be significantly lower than if you decide to go study in the Greater Toronto area, for example. So,
Okay. And is the study permit the same whether you're taking a 1-year course, 2-year course, a bachelor's or a master's? It's all the same application,
it's the
or?
same document essentially you're
Mhm.
applying for. Yeah. So there may be some little technicalities that are different, but essentially it's the same document you're applying for. The requirements will be similar.
Oh,
I
okay.
think I think the advantage of having a 2-year course is you have a 3 years PGWP. Is that right?
Correct. In most cases, not all cases, but in most cases, yes.
Wow.
The longer your course, the longer the postgraduate work permit that you can apply for at the end. Now, the postgraduate work permit is a whole other discussion in and of itself.
Mhm.
But yes, this is something that potential students should keep in mind. They should also be clear on the requirements of getting a postgraduate work permit. The most important of which is to maintain full-time studies during the entire course. If for even one semester you do not have full-time studies, you could face serious troubles when it comes to when the time comes to apply for your postgraduate work permit.
Okay.
There have been some they've been a little bit more forgiving during COVID time. There were some temporary public policies enacted to try to simplify life because it was very difficult to maintain full-time studies. But yes, it's a case by case.
So that means the longer the course, the more money also you need to fund yourself
Yes,
for the tuition and the cost of
yes, of
living.
course,
Yeah.
because you have to keep paying, you have to keep supporting yourself. So
Okay.
that is very true.
All right.
However, you can work a little bit while you're studying, which can
Mhm.
help you pay for the next semester.
Okay.
And then the students are allowed to study, I mean, work while studying here so they can support themselves, right?
Yeah. While you're a study permit holder, in most cases, while you're maintaining full-time studies, you can
Uh-huh.
work up to 20 hours a week in under normal circumstances. Now, it's an interesting timing that you would ask me that question because it bears to mention that so on October 7th of this year, so about 5 weeks ago, the government announced that this week, on the 15th, so what is it today, the 12th?
Mm-hmm.
So on the 15th of November, there would be a temporary public policy enacted that would become active and would remove the 20-hour cap for students. So they can work until that temporary public policy is revoked. They can work as many hours as they want.
Okay.
Wow. So just like ordinary full-time workers.
Correct. But you still have to maintain full-time studies. So, it really
Okay.
depends how much
Oh,
punishment you can take, right?
Yes.
that's good news for the students and good news
It
also
is.
for the employers. That's right.
It is. I think the goal behind this is that right now, following the pandemic and following the amount of people that left the workforce, is this huge hole in the labor market. And while immigration is a good way to fill it, it's a slow process. So I think that the goal behind this, and don't quote me on this, I wasn't involved in the decision making behind it, but I think the idea is as a temporary band-aid
Mhm.
to allow students to work to try to fill those labor market gaps.
And then if the students already finish his schools like 2 years and is already graduate, can he immediately apply for PR or he has to go back to his country of origin?
Well, so this is really a case by case answer. And the answer would vary from province to province. I would say that if the students played their cards right, they were here for a DLI, studying for at least a year, and there's no reason for them to have to go back home. They would generally qualify for postgraduate work permit after graduation, which would allow them to work, get work experience, eventually qualify for a PR pathway if they don't already qualify. See, each province has different provincial nomination programs, which would give different, options to those graduate students. So again, I recommend that, and it is very important for students to do this. I definitely recommend consulting with a professional, and as early as you can during your studies, and make a timeline of what your goals are to make sure you don't miss an important step, and then find yourself scrambling at the last minute to fix something, or really find yourself in a situation where you have to leave Canada and return home. That's really the last thing you want to do after you study here, is have to return home.
That's nice. What that's like. That's why we love Canada so much. They're giving us several options for here to live better life here in Canada. But no, what are the other options that they can choose aside from international students or sponsorships? Are there other options that they can go here and migrate?
Right. So there are literally hundreds of potential streams that foreign workers or foreign nationals, can apply under and eventually get PR. All of these streams have different requirements, and they're all highly specific to an individual. Provinces will have various provincial nominee programs to attract potential foreign nationals to get established in the province, generally in exchange for a commitment to establish in that province. Then there's going to be some federal streams, like what we call the federal skilled workers, the Canadian experience class, which have been very much difficult to get through, to get in, since the pandemic put everything to a stop. So the three main categories to come to Canada are through, obviously, refugees, which in 99.9% of people will not qualify as refugees. Then there's going to be the family sponsorships, which is generally for spouses, children, parents, and grandparents, or parents actually. But and then there's going to be the economic immigration. Economic immigration is where the majority of, I would imagine, your viewers, your subscribers, and immigrants really coming to Canada go through. So you qualify for one of those economic immigration streams, then you place your application. And again, to get some very specific details on your case, for whoever is viewing, I would recommend you book a consultation with a professional. I think it's important to have somebody have a look at your specific scenario and lay out in front of you your possibilities and what would be the most practical for you to pursue. That way you have a clear pathway set ahead of you. You have clear milestones that to reach. So that's about it. Yeah.
It's nice, Deus.
Yes. One big question always is, how long does it take to process?
Yeah.
I've been hearing people, how long? It's been 2 years. It's been 3 years. They're still waiting in their home countries. How long? I mean, this is for federal skilled. I'm sure the student come in faster.
Yeah, it varies. So IRCC makes it public, their most recent processing times. Now, this isn't going to apply to everybody. The processing times follow the 80-20 rule, where 80% of cases are processed within that time. 20% of the cases will be exceptional and might go longer than this. So if you have a complicated case, then you might expect to take longer. Like, here's an example. If you come from a country where you had to do military service, then there's a chance if your spousal sponsorship goes through, it might take longer because they will have to do a more thorough background check with you. So there's, processing times, you can consult them online. They change from 1 week to the other. It's only accurate at the moment you view it. So in 12 months, when it's your turn, it might be different. So right now, I believe PNPs are something along the lines of 22 months.
Mm-hmm.
AIPP, Atlantic Immigration Pilot Program, is like 14 months. I'm not sure about the federal programs. It changes every week.
Okay.
So during COVID, federal skilled workers was pretty much put on a halt because they did not want to have influx from individuals or foreign nationals from another country coming to Canada if they were not already here. Obviously, because of the pandemic. So it just shot through the roof. I think it's still 27 months, and it was like 6 months before the pandemic. So we're expecting that these processing times will go down. And the reason I'm saying this is there was an announcement made, I think it was over a month ago, about 2 months ago, where there was an injection of, I believe it was $250 million in the Canadian immigration system. And this was going to be used to hire more staff to try to start processing the backlog. So the goal, I believe, is for the processing times to go back to their pre-COVID levels. Now, whether this is going to happen or not is a whole other story, but my understanding is that's the goal. So.
What is a TR to PR?
TR to PR, that was a temporary pathway that was initiated during COVID, and it allowed people that were here as temporary residents who met specific criteria to apply for permanent residency. It's been since closed, so that's not an option anymore.
Okay, that's clear now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. During the pandemic, since there was they closed the borders or they stopped the influx of foreign nationals that were not already in the country. Then they put in some temporary pathways to allow those who were already in Canada and had worked, to supplement the labor force during the COVID pandemic and had, paid their dues. Let's just put it that way, to have an easier time transitioning from temporary resident to PR. So this was only, I don't remember the exact dates, but this was only for a few months. So.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it's done already. Okay. Clear now.
So, Patrick, as a potential maybe client, how do I start? If I approach you, do you expect me to know everything, or will you walk me through the process, or will you guide me as to what's the best option for me? How does a client consultant start?
That's a good question. So there's going to be a few types of clients that I'm going to meet. Some people have an idea, and really that's the first thing, right? Is you have to have a plan. You have to see where do you see yourself in 5 years, right? And then as a consultant, my job will be, when it comes to the consultation side of things, will be to, okay, you have a plan. How can we get there? I'm going to look at your current situation. How much savings do you have? What's your education level? What's your family situation? What's your work experience? How much effort are you willing to invest in this? And then I'm going to, make a little bit of a timeline for you, make a little bit of, give you the big lines, give you goals, tell you how to get there, what to expect, and try to make it as realistic as possible. I personally try not to color it too much for people, not give them false hopes. If somebody is trying to do something and really I think it's not realistic, then I generally will tell them. Even if that's not what they want to hear, I think it's best to not have too much expectations, unrealistic expectations. Then there's going to be people that are going to come to me where they've already kind of done their due diligence or their homework, and they already know or think they know how the process works. I would say in most cases they don't quite know it, or they have a good idea of where to go. And it's easier to nudge them in the right direction because they understand how the basic process works. So it's basically going to be how it is. So we're going to get to know each other. I'm going to try to figure out, so what are your goals? Where do you see yourself in a few years? How much effort are you willing to take to put into this? A lot of people seem to think coming to Canada is simple. It's not. It's a commitment and really an investment in your time, your money, and your family's time and your family's money. So it's a big commitment. Make sure they understand this, and then just kind of take all of their personal information, make a plan for them, and give them a rough timeline. Timeline's always flexible, let's put it that way, because there's so much moving parts involved in this. So.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Okay.
first and foremost for our subscribers, most important thing is to get a legitimate immigration consultant. The
Oh,
least thing
absolutely.
that we want to happen is we be scammed with with other people. Like I know
Absolutely.
there's a lot of them. I'm sorry to say, but really there's a lot of them. So get a
There is.
legitimate immigration consultant who's
Yeah.
really you have a license called um what's that again? An
Yeah. So I'm
association.
an RCIC, which is a regulated Canadian
That's it.
immigration consultant, which means I
Yeah.
have to maintain membership with the College of Immigration Consultants.
Uh-huh.
And doing this requires that I follow a set of rules that are very stringent. And if I don't follow these rules, then I put myself out for possible disciplinary action, maybe suspension of my license, or, in some extreme cases, even criminal cases against you. You can do jail time for abusing immigrants' trust. And see, the biggest difference between regulated professionals and the ones we call ghost consultants, and when I say regulated professionals, I mean regulated consultants and also lawyers, is that we have people to account to. Like we are accountable for everything that we say. Every time I give somebody legal advice, I'm accountable for that advice. And really, the person could put in a complaint against me, and if it is justified, then some kind of disciplinary action can be taken against me. Now, ghost consultants, they're not accountable for anyone, so
Yeah.
everything they say, it doesn't matter to them. They just want your money, right? So in
Yeah.
some cases, there's a good heart there. They really do want to help people, but it doesn't really matter because they're not accountable for what they say. And if they're wrong, well, the worst that can happen when they're wrong is they can ruin somebody else's life. So I've had many cases, many people come to me, crying on my desk because either they were given wrong information, they paid tens of thousands of dollars to those consultants,
Oh,
or in some cases didn't really understand what they were doing, tried to DIY something, and really, really messed it up. Now, some people DIYing is perfectly fine. All of that information is public domain. But I would say the majority of people, if it's not something that you're comfortable with, then don't do it.
that's
Definitely don't.
true.
And even if you think you're comfortable, well, there's nothing that prevents you from, paying $150 for a professional to look at your plan and to tell you whether or not what you're thinking works. You don't have to, follow through and get them to do your paperwork, but by booking a consultation with an experienced professional, you can buy some peace of mind. And peace of mind is worth its weight in gold. So.
Perfect.
And and there's one more thing, and Patrick, generally speaking, Filipinos are shy people. They're afraid to ask
True.
questions.
Yes.
So, and then most especially if you're an immigration consultant, then they'll be afraid to approach you. But Patrick is close to Filipinos. No, he knows
I am. Yeah.
some. Can you tell us why, Patrick?
Well, I'm
How it
about
all
as close as you
started.
can be to Filipinos because my wife is Filipino. So,
Yeah, that's
Ah.
it.
uh,
Patrick,
yeah,
it's adobo,
yeah, I
sinigang.
do. I
And
do.
can you
I
get
like adobo, but my favorite Filipino food is sinigang, shrimp
yeah,
sinigang.
see,
I love that. So, yeah, yeah,
and
and I eat a lot of different Filipino foods because also my mother-in-law also lives with us and she cooks for us, so it's generally Filipino food. I'm okay with it. I love it. It's great.
I see now. Okay, then
Yeah.
how long have you been married to Clarice?
So we've been married 10 years last September 1st.
10 years.
So we got married in Manila 10 years ago, a couple months ago. And yeah, it was an interesting journey that led there. I met my wife um, about 12 or so years ago. We met playing online games, World of Warcraft. I don't know if anybody's familiar with it. Anyway, I used to be in video games before I was, more serious about life. So we met through this, and then eventually, when I wanted to visit the world, I remembered that I knew somebody who lived in Southeast Asia, and so I reached out to her and I asked her, so as me, so where can I go in the Philippines on my own? And she told me nowhere. so,
Very true.
so so I said, okay, well, how do we do this? And then she said, well, I can take some time off work and I can show you around if you want. So I said, yeah, absolutely. So booked a ticket, and then we met, and then the rest is history, right?
Right.
And I went, I think, a total of 10 times, the last time being when we got married. And then I initiated the sponsorship process after the fact, which was my first brush with immigration, essentially. This is how I got introduced to Canadian immigration. Before that, I never actually had any occasion to learn about immigration. Like, as somebody who was born and raised in Canada, this is something that I'm not, we're not exposed to, the whole immigration process. And I thought it was pretty complicated and pretty long and convoluted. And what basically happened after that is, once you've done it once, right, all of your friends think you're the subject matter expert. So, after 8 years of being asked questions that I really couldn't answer most of the time, I figured, well, I might as well get paid for this. So I studied immigration law and procedure. And then in May of 2021, I passed the entry to practice exam. And I've been licensed to practice since December of last year. Yeah. So not very long, approximately a year that I've been licensed, but it's been a busy year. And I think I've grown a lot as a professional during that time, and learned quite a bit.
That's good. So I see that you're, Patrick, finding a new career in immigration. You've been so passionate about it, helping people, helping their families. What's the most challenging part of being an immigration consultant?
Well, the most challenging part of being an immigration consultant, at least for me, it doesn't apply to everybody, is that I really try to be a nice guy. And if I don't control myself and I try to help everybody, then I'm going to go bankrupt in a month. So, because sadly, and this is something that me and my wife are looking into, maybe eventually creating a nonprofit for here in New Brunswick, but there's no real legal help for people that are in really dire situations when it comes to immigration. And, many times I'll have people calling me, or I'll meet them when I'm outside of Costco or something, and they know me, and they're telling me their story. And the thing is, the most common thing that people have is, the more people need help, the less money they have to pay, right? And I've had some cases that I took where, sure, I charged them some money, but I knew they were never going to pay me. And they haven't, right? But I can do this once in a while. But if I keep doing this and I keep being too nice to people, then I'm going to go bankrupt. Yeah. And I'm going to have to go back to my job at Bell.
And what's the fun part of having a Filipina as a wife?
I mean, the culture. It was a very, very interesting thing to be exposed to different cultures. So I grew up in rural Quebec, right? Outside, in a small place called Amos, which is a really tiny town, like 10,000 people. So meeting somebody from a completely different culture really has kind of opened my eyes. It makes you appreciate life a little bit more. And there's one thing that I don't remember who said it, but it's a famous statement, is that there's nothing that destroys prejudice more than traveling. And it's very much true. Once you travel around the world and you see other cultures, it makes you a lot more understanding of other people's circumstances. Yeah. And that's essentially what would happen. When I met her and when I met her family in the Philippines and I traveled, made me understand a lot of things. I came back, a more humble person and more appreciative of the life that I had. So, yeah. And then,
We have another saying: when you marry a Filipina, you marry the whole family.
Oh, absolutely. That's why her sister is here, and her mom lives upstairs, and my wife lives here as well. So, and then her other sister and brother are coming to visit for the holidays. So, yeah, no, you're very much right. They're nice people.
Is that a culture shock on your part?
And my wife is right.
Yes. Show your face.
I think she's shy, but yeah.
Okay.
But one thing that I did learn is I was told that Filipinos were generally submissive and quiet, and that's not true. Not my wife.
There's always an exception.
Yeah. Case by case,
In your case closed.
And I can also speak a little bit of Tagalog.
Oh
Not a
yeah,
lot.
what is
I
it?
can understand a little bit of Tagalog, but I can only really say one sentence well. And I had to learn how to say that one during my first couple of trips. And it's hindi ako kumakain ng balat.
You have to stand here. And
I have to know
is
how to
that
say this one.
yeah? Is that real for on your part? You don't
It
really.
is, yeah. I haven't. So we had a little bit of a deal where on our 10th after our 10th wedding anniversary, I would eat balat, but it's already happened, and I don't want to eat balat. So I told her I'm gonna go and retcon that and not eat balat.
uh,
I'm sure it's delicious. It's a psychological thing, right? I can't eat it.
and
So it's
what are the other Pinoy foods that you like?
So at first I didn't really like bulalo because I
Bulalo.
don't like the. At first I didn't really like it because I like as a Canadian, like mostly what I'm used to is like Italian food and Canadian
Uh-huh.
food, whatever that is. So I never really eat fat, like gelatinous fat. So it's something I can't physically eat. I didn't, but I just kind of eat around the fat, and it's still delicious. I do like pancit, pancit canton, good too. Yeah, sinigang, like shrimp sinigang the most. I don't mind rib sinigang, but I always think it's I would like some barbecue ribs instead of ribs and sinigang. And yeah, that's about it. And yeah, of course adobo, right? Yeah.
all right.
Mm.
So how will be your Christmas? I mean, how was your Christmas and this upcoming Christmas? I'm sure your house will be full of decorations.
For the
Yeah, it should
people.
be. I mean, we're working on setting up the decorations right now. Yeah, because it's a few days after Halloween, so it's time to set up Christmas decorations. And then I think my wife's family is going to come and visit during the holidays, so it should be a full happy house,
Yeah.
hopefully. And yeah,
So
my
now you
little boy is
experience
excited about it too.
the early Christmas decorations.
Yes, of course. Yeah, the day after Halloween, we're starting to think about Christmas.
Christmas already.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the
Yeah,
Christmas decorations will stay until February, right?
Yeah.
that's true. But have you been in the Philippines on Christmas time?
I haven't, no, and I
Oh,
Oh,
heard
you
okay.
should. That's
it
one you
was
should
it
try.
was great. I kind of the last time I went, no, not the last time. The second to last time was just after Christmas, like early February. So I kind of missed it. But I heard it was beautiful. To me, this would
Oh
be
yeah,
really weird to have no snow at Christmas, but it's
the
yeah,
Okay.
the best, the
yeah,
best. It's
the
very
best.
very yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
full of noise, full of
Well, I
fireworks.
can only imagine that they would be grand. I mean, everything I've seen in the Philippines is grand. So, yeah, people love to celebrate, and that's great. I like
Uh,
that.
favorite place in the Philippines?
Favorite place? I think it would have to be Tagaytay. I mean,
Mm.
pre-eruption,
Oh,
I guess. I haven't been there since the volcano
yeah,
erupted,
Tagaytay.
but that's where
Yeah.
we had our honeymoon. And one of the first trips that we did, we went to Tagaytay, and we ended up being stuck in a typhoon there for 3 days. So we stayed at a small hotel called the Keniplo for about 3 days, and yeah, we had all kind of jokes about the place, but it was fun. Yeah, then we went back for our honeymoon. So we tried to go to the same place, but I think it wasn't open anymore. I don't remember, but anyway, we went back there, climbed up the volcano, visited
And
the little tourist areas around it.
you tried the buko juice. You know buko juice,
I did, yes. You know what?
coconut.
I didn't
Coconut.
remember that, but yes, I did try like straight out of the coconut, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that was nice. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
not something I'm used to. Yeah, yeah, that was
All
great.
right.
Other than that, we went to Subic. That was fun too.
Subic. Yeah, Subic's a nice
We drove
place.
to Balair at one point.
Mm-hmm.
Baler.
Uh,
Wow, that's
it
a
was
nice
10
island.
years ago. So we
Uh-huh.
drove through Luzon all the way up to Balair. That was quite a ride.
Yeah.
And yeah, we went to Infanta one time too to a friend's resort. It was fun. All great places. So yeah, had a
You
great
you
time.
you went to Baguio or Bohol?
Nope, never Baguio. I didn't want to go to the tourist areas. I just wanted
Ah,
to go to like regular places that regular people would go to. I'm
ah, okay.
not a tourist kind of guy.
Okay.
Maybe I would now, though. Now I probably would go to the tourist areas because I'm old now.
Yeah.
This.
So, Patrick, thank you so much for gracing the show. Thank you for your general information about immigration here in Canada. So, to all our XL viewers, reminder to everyone, if you need help, please consult a licensed professional immigration consultant. Patrick Bergeron is available to assist you. Okay, we will leave his number, contact details here, whether you're in Canada, in New Brunswick, or outside the country. You can contact him. And just a reminder again, everything that we discuss is for general information only. Also, it depends on what you need. So always contact a professional immigration consultant like Patrick here. Thank you so much, Patrick, for your time in joining the Excel show. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure to get to meet both of you and talk a little bit about my life with you guys and give you some advice. I mean, again, none of this is meant to be taken as legal advice, and you should always assume you have a complicated case, and you should always consult. If it is within the realm of possibilities, you should always consult. This is like I said, this is not a decision that should be taken lightly. Immigrating to Canada is a life-changing decision, and it's worth investing a few $100s to make sure you don't waste years of your life with wrong decisions or wrong information or misinformation, really.
And to our subscribers, the mga ka-XL, don't be afraid to ask Patrick. Don't be shy because he's now living with the Filipinos inside his house. So he knows the culture. He knows the culture. Bahala yung asawa niya sa kanya. Okay. Patrick, thank you so much. Thank you so much for gracing to the XL show. And to our XL friends, just like and subscribe. And you can still comment your questions down below. And Patrick should just be there. We can just call him again for some questions, right, Patrick? Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good day, everyone.
Bye. Bye.